If you've ever gone hiking in the woods, you probably know that it's usually not very exciting. It's peaceful, with only occasional glimpses of wildlife and the usual forest sights of rocks, trees, and insects. So it might come as a surprise when Environmental Services Director Mark Andrew discovers something unusual. Mark grew up exploring the Arctic California Community Forest, so he knew the forest really well. He thought he knew everything there was to know about the woods. But one day, while he was tagging trees for harvesting, he found something strange. There was something hidden in the trees that he'd never seen before, and he was pretty sure it wasn't there the last time he was in that area. As he got closer to it, he was surprised by what he found: a hidden cabin that was cleverly camouflaged among the trees. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Mark knew that building a cabin there was not allowed, so he had to be careful. He wasn't sure what he would find inside the small hut. He wondered if there might be a person inside, and if they were armed and potentially dangerous. Maybe they thought Mark was trespassing on their land. Thankfully, there was a padlock on the door, which made Mark think that nobody was inside. Even though Mark knew a lot about the forest, he hadn't been to this exact spot for a long time, not since 1985 when he worked as a forest technician. It was clear that the person who built the cabin didn't want anyone to find it. The cabin was very well made and hidden in the trees so that it wouldn't be easily seen. Mark was lucky to stumble upon it because it was hidden so well. It was small, about 12 feet wide and 15 feet high, enough for one person to live in the wilderness comfortably. The cabin was built with plywood and covered in tarps. It even had a fancy roof, a window, a front porch, and an awning to make it feel cozy. The person who built it put a lot of time and effort into making it their own. Now, all Mark needed was the courage to go inside. Mark could only assume that the cabin hadn't been found yet because of its isolation and camouflage state. Both reasons are also most likely how the builder was able to construct the place without getting in trouble. "I didn't see it until I was 12 feet from it," says Mark. "It's in the perfect out-of-the-way spot where it wouldn't be detected." Only now, Mark knew about its location and was getting increasingly more curious about it. The entire thing was a mystery he wanted to solve. What made the cabin even stranger was that there were no footprints or paths leading to or from where it was. Also, there was no garbage or harm to the environment nearby. It seemed like the person who lived there really cared about nature. Maybe they grew up in the woods like Mark did. After looking closely at the cabin and the area around it, Mark didn't have much else to do but go inside. There was a padlock on the door, so he thought no one would be inside, right? But as Mark thought about what to do, he started to feel uneasy. The woods used to be a safe and familiar place where he could be alone with nature, but now he felt nervous. It was almost as if he could hear every little sound in the wind and the trees. For the first time, he didn't feel alone. He wondered if someone was watching him check out the cabin. Mark was sure he felt like someone was there with him. One thing was clear: he couldn't face this situation on his own. Before going inside, Mark thought it would be a smart idea to call two forest technicians, Javier Nogaria and Rickman Fredonia, for backup. Along with Park Ranger Heidi Grossman, they ventured to the mysterious cabin in the woods. Unfortunately, the ranger had to make a decision. As the cabin was technically on public land, they needed a search warrant to go inside. But what if someone was hurt? Leaving them would be irresponsible. After no one answered their multiple calls, Ranger Grossman made the call. Together, they finally cut off the padlock on the front door. It took longer than any of them thought it would, but once it was off, they weren't sure what they were going to find inside the tiny cabin. They walked slowly. Their imaginations weren't even close to conjuring up what they actually found inside. Because she was the only one with a weapon, Heidi entered the cabin first, shouting, "Arcata police!" Thankfully, they were gone. Whoever lived in the cabin was long gone. When it was clear the four of them were alone, they started to scour the area, taking in all the contents on the shelves, floors, and in the miscellaneous crates. The owner of the cabin might have been gone, but the place was definitely well loved and lived in. They wanted to see if they could figure out anything about the owner from the supplies. They wished there were pictures, but there weren't any. The cabin's layout was strange for a forest cabin. The living and kitchen areas were small, but they had shelves neatly filled with non-perishable food and cleaning stuff. There was a rocking chair beside a coffee table with a tea kettle, and across from it, a pot-bellied stove. Oddly, everything looked pretty normal, which made them think the person living there wasn't struggling in the woods. On another shelf, they found books like Catch Me If You Can and medicinal plants of the Pacific West. This made them think the cabin's owner might be older, as young folks might not read books like Public Secrets. They also found cassette tapes, which hinted at the person's age, but they couldn't be sure. But that wasn't all. They also found a handwritten list of things to do and get. It had dates and tasks like build bench, extend brush wall, and get tongs. They also discovered a newspaper from Humboldt State University dated March 25, 2015. All these clues helped them figure out when the owner might have lived in the cabin. Oddly, the team found 2 driver's licenses with different names, but this didn't help them figure out who owned the cabin. They thought maybe the person only lived here sometimes, but there were 2 licenses. It made them wonder if 2 people were living in the cabin, not just one as they originally thought. It seemed like it would take 2 people to carry some of the heavy things they found, but it wasn't solid proof. The group thought about bringing in experts who could search for DNA in the cabin to find out who built it. They really wanted to know who was so skilled at making this cabin in the middle of nowhere and how they managed to bring all the heavy supplies without anyone noticing. Mark had a strange feeling that something mysterious was happening. Was the person living in the woods innocent, or were they up to something more sinister? Unfortunately, it was getting dark, so the team decided to stop for the day. They didn't want to be in the forest when it got completely dark, and they didn't want to be near the cabin in case the owner returned in the middle of the night. Before they left, the group put a notice on the cabin's door, telling the owner to leave. After all, the cabin was on a nature refuge, and it wasn't allowed to be there. They had no idea what would happen next. Authorities returned to the cabin the next day, and what they found left them speechless. The place was completely deconstructed. The only trace that anyone had been there was a charcoal squatter symbol where the cabin once sat. Michael McDowell, who works with the Environmental Service Department and knows a lot about nature, said, "I've never seen a campsite cleaned up so well. There wasn't even a nail or a gum wrapper left behind. Even the people who care about the environment can't be mad at the person who lived here for leaving any litter. Since the cabin was built illegally, it's very unlikely that the person who made it will admit it. Still, it's quite amazing that they were able to build it in the first place and live there without anyone finding them. Considering all the things the cabin had, they might have stayed there for a while. But why would someone choose to live in the forest, away from the comforts of a regular home? Whoever this person is, it's clear that they prefer a simple and self-sufficient lifestyle, and we may never solve the mystery of their cabin." What are your thoughts about this forest cabin and its owner? Please share your opinions in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your loved ones. Don't forget to click the bell icon to stay updated with our channel. Thank you.